All right, so we've now moved up into the quarry. You may have remembered from my welcome video that we're up in the Colgate Quarry right now. And the reason why we come up here is because this is probably the best place on campus, the most diverse place to find ferns. And that's the next lineage on our phylogeny of green plants, are the ferns. And here I have what you probably recognize as a fern. Now, in contrast to the moss that we saw earlier, all that green stuff you saw was the haploid gametophyte stage, the 1N gametophyte stage. All the green stuff you see now is the diploid, or the 2N sporophyte stage. So we've had a shift in the dominance of the life cycle. We've moved from plants whose life cycle is dominated by the gametophyte phase to plants whose life cycle is dominated by the sporophyte stage. And what I want to do is I want to sort of get a little more intimately familiar with this parts and pieces of the fern so you can think back to the homology across the different life cycles. So if you take a look here, this is the marginal wood fern in the genus Dryopteris. This is actually an interesting name, Dryopteris marginalis. And the reason why it's called marginalis is because if you look on the bottom side of the leaves, you see these little dots here. Now, those dots are not insects. They're part of the sporophyte. As a matter of fact, each one of those dots, if you can see, are little tiny balls, like little basketballs, and each one of those is a sporangium. I think it might be a little easier to see if we move down to this one that is slightly less mature. I'm going to take it off and I'll hold it in my hand. And so if you take a look at this one, each one of these dots look like a little sort of kidney-shaped dot. They're called a sorus or sori. And inside each one of these dots are dozens of sporangia. Now remember, everything you're seeing here is actually diploid or 2N tissue. Just like in the mosses, the sporangia is the site of where meiosis takes place. Meiosis takes place inside the sporangium. The sporangium pops open. The wind blows the spores out of the sporangium, disperses the spores. They land. They grow into a gametophyte. Okay, they grow through mitosis to produce a haploid gametophyte. Remember, the spores were originally derived from meiotic divisions. The spores themselves are meiotically derived, and they're haploid. They germinate and grow through mitosis to produce a haploid gametophyte. Now, fern gametophytes can be hard to find. This late in the year, I'm not finding any here, but I'll have some in the lab that I'll share with you. But it's on that gametophyte, just like in all other plants, where sex happens. That is the sexual phase. The gametophyte will produce the gametangia that either have sperm or egg. In the gametangia, the sperm are released and they swim around in water. They fertilize the egg. That fertilization produces a diploid zygote. It's not released. We're firmly entrenched into sporic meiosis. That zygote is not released. It grows through mitosis to grow into eventually and mature into this nice, healthy-looking sporophyte that we see here. Okay, so now we're no longer in the field, obviously. We're back to my iPad. And I really want to talk about, I know exactly what you've been waiting for, your opportunity to see and talk about fern gametophytes. This image is a rotting log that has several gametophytes, fern gametophytes growing on it. And you see they're all kind of heart-shaped. Not all fern gametophytes are heart-shaped, but many of them are. And these gametophytes are much smaller than the gametophytes that you saw in mosses. And but they're still independent. So the gametophytes and the sporophytes in the ferns are independent, free-living parts of the life cycle. Ferns and a few lycophytes are the only ones that have both free-living gametophytes and sporophyte generations. Now, if you look down here at a little closer to the gametophyte, sort of the microscopic scale, here we have a fern gametophyte, and this gametophyte is depicted in this image as being hermaphroditic, meaning that it has archegonia. Now, you already know from the moss video that the archegonia produces the eggs, the female part of the gametophyte, and you have antheridia scattered throughout. The antheridia produce sperm. So this gametophyte is hermaphroditic. Now let's take a look at one of these antheridia to begin this. So let's enlarge this out, and what you see right here, here is an antheridium, and all of these little dots you see inside of here are the actual spermatozoa, or the sperm. These are sperm that have already been released from the antheridium. The antheridium pops open, the sperm are released, and it's a little bit hard to see, but if you zoom in, you see these fern sperm are spiral. They're a little bit, they look something like this, a little spiral with some flagella
and a little ball of cytoplasm in the mitochondria. Not much to them, but that's what they look like. They swim around in kind of a random fashion. And as they're swimming through this aqueous medium, the water actually causes the archegonium to open. So here we have archegonia, multiple archegonia. In this case, they're actually opened. You see, this is actually a closed archegonium here. Here is the egg, okay? And what happens is when these things get in contact with water, this middle cell group of cells dissolve, and it results in the opening of the archegonial neck. It opens up, and when this opens up, it exposes the egg at the base. So the sperm then, let's just pretend they're swimming from here. They swim around, and they go right down there, and then they fertilize the egg. And now that results in the reconstitution of a diploid sporophyte following successful fertilization.